Hello, my name is Abigail. When I was 14, my mother pulled into a gas station, tossed me a 20, handed me a worn-out bag, and said, "You're grown. Figure it out." Then she got back in the car and drove away with her new husband and their picture-perfect family. I waited there for 6 hours. She never came back. But while I was sitting on a cold bench watching strangers come and go, she was posting photos online with the caption, "Making memories with the ones who matter most." I used to wonder if it was just a bad moment. Maybe she cracked. But what if it wasn't a moment at all? What if it was a plan? What if they had been erasing me long before they ever left me behind? She didn't even pull the car into a parking spot. Just right there, next to the pump, like she was dropping off a package that didn't belong to her anymore. I remember the clicking of the engine, the faint buzz of the gas station's neon sign, and the way her fingers tightened around the steering wheel one last time before she let go. "Get out," she said flatly. "You're grown. Figure it out." That was it. No hug, no eye contact, just the sound of the trunk popping open like a door slamming on my childhood. I stepped out slowly, confused more than scared. My backpack, one of those old canvas ones with a frayed zipper, hit the pavement with a soft thud. Before I could ask anything, before I could even say goodbye, she shifted the gear and pulled away. Dorian sat in the driver's seat now. He never looked at me. And in the back, Callista waved, stiff and rehearsed, like she wasn't sure if it was allowed. And then, they were gone. Just like that. I stood on the edge of a rundown gas station somewhere on the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. The wind cut through my jacket like it knew I didn't belong there. A cold November morning, gray skies, no sun, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones and stays there. At first I didn't panic. Maybe it was shock. Maybe some deep, dumb part of me thought this was a test, that she'd loop around in a minute, laugh nervously, say something like, "Had you there for a second, didn't I?" So I waited. First 5 minutes, then 10. I walked to the edge of the pavement, hoping to see brake lights. I paced. I sat on the concrete ledge. I stood back up. I told myself stories. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe they'd forgotten something and would be back soon. But the longer I stood there, the more silence I got. No one asked if I was okay. No one cared that a 14-year-old girl was sitting with a backpack and no ride. The cashier inside barely looked up when I walked in to ask if I could sit somewhere out of the cold. He pointed to the corner near the vending machine like he was pointing to a trash can. An older man in a trucker jacket passed by an hour later and asked if I needed anything. I told him no, politely. He left a granola bar on the ledge anyway, without another word. I didn't eat it right away. Pride can be heavy, even when your stomach's empty. Eventually, I realized I needed to know what time it was. My phone was dead. Figures. I asked a young woman at the gas pump if she had a charger. She handed me hers without hesitation. God bless women who don't ask questions when they see another woman on the edge. I plugged in, leaned against the wall, and turned it on. The screen flickered. Battery at 2%. One notification. Instagram. My mother had posted, "Weekend escape with the ones I love the most." The caption sat beneath a photo of the beach, Seraphine in a sun hat, drink in hand, smile full of teeth. Dorian had his arm around her, Callista in the center, glowing in matching blue with them. They were all wearing sweaters. The same ones they made me pack just in case. I stared at it so long I didn't realize I was holding my breath. It wasn't just the post, it was the timestamp. 10 minutes after they left me, they didn't forget me. They had planned it. I zoomed in on the photo. There, on Callista's lap, was the book I had been reading, the one I accidentally left in the back seat. My name was on the inside cover. They didn't even check. They never intended to take me with them. That realization hit harder than the cold. This wasn't abandonment by impulse. This was erasure by design. I thought back to the night before. Seraphine had been distant all week, but that night, she was ice. No eye contact, no dinner, just instructions. Pack a small bag. We're going away for a day or two. No details, no explanation. I remember asking, "Where are we going?" She replied, "Just somewhere to get clear." Her tone made it clear. Don't ask again. I packed my own bag. No help, no oversight. One change of clothes, my history book, a half-dead charger, toothbrush, granola bar, $20 from babysitting last week. She said nothing when I got in the car the next morning. Dorian was already in the front seat. Callista had headphones in. The only sound was the tires on the road. I didn't speak. I just stared out the window, trying to memorize the streets in case I needed to find my way back. Some part of me already knew. And now, sitting on a metal bench near the station's ice machine, I watched people come and go. Families, couples, a woman holding a toddler while pumping gas. No one looked twice at me. I was invisible. The charger died again. My phone blinked red and then black. I counted my cash. $20. Folded, refolded, smoothed out, counted again. That was all I had. No card, no ride, no idea where I was. Not really. My legs ached. My fingers were stiff. I could feel the edges of panic clawing up my throat. But then, I remembered a number. It had sat in my contacts list for years, never deleted. Even after Seraphine told me to forget she existed. I pulled my phone out again, just in case. Tapped the number. My thumb hovered over the green call button. I didn't expect her to answer. She was in her 70s now, I thought. Maybe the number had changed, but I pressed it anyway. Ring, once, twice. And then, a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. Steady, warm, unmistakable. Abigail? Idaline, I whispered into the phone, unsure if I was still awake or slipping into some kind of survival hallucination. My hands were trembling, not from the cold anymore, but from something deeper, relief maybe, or the sudden cracking open of the wall I'd built to keep myself together. Her voice didn't waver. Where are you, Abigail? Speak clearly, sweetheart. Are you safe? I looked around, taking in the gas station again. The air smelled of diesel and burned coffee. I'm at a place called Riverbend Gas, off Highway 74, I said. They dropped me off here this morning and they're not… My voice gave out. My throat felt too small. Idaline didn't react the way I thought she would. No panic, no fuss. Just steady, unwavering resolve. I know where that is. Don't move. Stay inside the station. Don't go with anyone. I'm coming for you. I'll be there in under 2 hours. 2 hours. I'd already been here for 4. Don't you want to know what happened? I asked, the words catching in my mouth like broken glass. I'll hear it when I see you, she said. But for now, just know this. None of this is your fault. Not a drop of it. You didn't deserve this, Abigail. That was it. That one sentence. After hours of being ignored, dismissed, erased, that one sentence broke something in me, not in a painful way. It cracked open the part that still believed I had to earn love. I didn't do anything wrong, I said, half to her, half to myself. No, you didn't. Now stay warm, stay put, and let me come get you. I hung up and clutched the phone, holding it like it might disappear if I let go. I tried calling other people next. My older sister, who used to braid my hair when I was little, straight to voicemail. My aunt, who once promised to take me shopping for a school dance but never showed. No answer. Even a friend of my mother's, who used to call me her little bonus girl. Her number was disconnected. I went through every name that ever claimed to be family, and one by one, I watched their names turn gray. Disconnected. Ignored, blocked. That's when I realized something nobody had said out loud before. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't one bad day. They all knew. Or worse, they didn't care. I stayed inside the gas station's corner, the one near the outdated claw machine with prizes covered in dust. The cashier didn't look twice at me. I kept checking the door, the road, the sky. Time moved slow and heavy. Rain started tapping against the window in that soft, slanted way. I pulled my knees up to my chest and curled around my backpack, like it could somehow keep me grounded. I unfolded the $20 bill for the 10th time. Still 20. Still all I had. I gave in and opened the granola bar the trucker left me. It was peanut butter and oats, a little stale, but it was food. Minutes passed, then maybe an hour. I watched the clouds darken as the drizzle became a steady sheet. The parking lot was nearly empty now. Even the truckers had moved on. My phone died again. This time, I didn't scramble for a charger. Instead, I whispered to myself, softly, like a promise I needed to hear from someone else. I'm still here. I repeated it. I'm still here. Because if I could say it, maybe I could believe it. Maybe being here meant I still mattered, even if no one had shown up to claim me. Eventually, the noise of the rain was interrupted by the soft rumble of tires on wet pavement. A car pulled into the lot, not a new model, but clean. Dark gray sedan, windows tinted. It moved with quiet purpose. No headlights flashing, no honking, no chaos. I stood slowly, unsure if I should hope. The driver's door opened first. And there she was, Idaline. Older than I remembered, of course. Her hair was white now, not steel gray. Her frame smaller. But she moved with that same unflinching dignity I remembered from childhood Thanksgivings and Sunday visits, before the fallout, before the silence. She didn't rush to me. She didn't cry. She didn't stretch her arms out for a dramatic reunion. She just looked me straight in the eye, like she was confirming I was still real, still standing. Then she said, "Come on, Abigail, we're going home." A tall man stepped out from the passenger side. He was in a tailored gray suit, the kind that wasn't flashy but whispered expensive. He nodded at me, respectful but reserved. "Atticus Graves," he said simply. "Family law." I didn't understand what that meant. Not yet. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My voice had dried up somewhere between the granola bar and the realization that I no longer had a family. Or maybe I had one, just not the one who left me behind. I walked toward them, slowly. My backpack thumped against my side. My shoes squeaked on the wet concrete. As I reached the car, Idaline opened the back door herself. No driver, no assistant. She waited for me to get in first. I hesitated for a second, not because I didn't trust her, but because the word home had been used so carelessly in my life, I wasn't sure what it meant anymore. But I got in, because even if I didn't know what home was, I knew it wasn't here. And I knew it wasn't with the people who could leave a child in the cold and post beach photos 10 minutes later. The door shut behind me with a soft click. Final, but not harsh. Idaline and Atticus got in. The car turned back toward the road, headlights slicing through the rain. And just like that, I was moving again. Not because someone pushed me out, but because someone finally came back. The car ride stretched longer than I expected. Not because of traffic or bad roads, there weren't any, but because of what wasn't said. Idaline occasionally offered small, practical updates, like, "We'll be there in 20 minutes," or, "You can stretch your legs soon." But otherwise, it was silence. Not the heavy, manipulative silence Seraphine used like a weapon, but a quieter kind. Respectful. Letting me have my space. Atticus didn't speak at all. He sat in the front, typing something into his phone, eyes occasionally checking the side mirror but never intruding. He carried himself like a man who knew more than he ever said, and for the first time in days, that didn't feel threatening. The streets started changing. We left behind fast food signs and rundown gas stations. The pavement turned smoother, the houses spaced further apart. Trees lined the road like silent guards, and suddenly we were driving through gated communities with names etched in stone at the entrance. Names like Fox Hollow Estates and Silver Pines. This wasn't where people with secondhand backpacks lived. I pressed my forehead against the window, watching as the sedan curved down a long private driveway flanked by tall hedges and iron lanterns. We passed a fountain, an actual fountain, and then the house came into view, or mansion, whatever word you use when a place looks like it belongs in a period drama, not real life. 3 stories of red brick and white columns, wide front steps, symmetrical windows with black shutters and candles glowing softly behind each one. My throat tightened, and not from nerves. Seraphine once told me Idaline had moved to a tiny cottage after Granddad died, said she didn't believe in hoarding wealth, and lived like a retired schoolteacher with cats. That was a lie. A beautiful, calculated, well-placed lie. As we pulled up to the front, the door opened before we even got out. A woman in a navy sweater and black slacks stepped out onto the porch. Mid-50s maybe, kind face, but no-nonsense posture. She came straight to the passenger side and opened my door. "Welcome home, Miss Abigail," she said, not hesitating for even a second. I blinked at her. Home? I wanted to say, "This isn't my home." I wanted to say, "You must be mistaken." But I didn't say anything. I just stepped out, gripping my worn backpack like it was the only familiar thing left in this world. Inside smelled like lemon oil, old wood, and something baking. There were fresh flowers in a tall vase by the stairs. A portrait of my grandfather hung above the mantel. He looked younger than I remembered, stronger, more certain. Idalene led me down a wide hallway toward a staircase that curved gently upward. "Your room is ready," she said, not waiting for a reply. "Second floor, end of the hall. Blue door." The housekeeper, whose name I'd learn later was Margaret, had already carried my bag up ahead of us. When I pushed open the blue door, I froze. The walls were soft blue, the bedspread a crisp white. There was a small desk by the window, a built-in bookcase, a reading nook with cushions in muted tones. A window seat overlooked the back garden, and laid out neatly on the bed, a set of pajamas, my size. "I always knew you'd need a place to land," Idalene said from behind me. The air in the room wasn't heavy like at Seraphine's. It didn't demand. It didn't accuse. It just existed, like it had been waiting. That scared me more than anything. Dinner came just after the sun slipped behind the trees. The dining room was grand but quiet. No shouting, no loud utensils clattering, no phones on the table. Just 3 plates, cloth napkins, a pitcher of water, and something that smelled like roast chicken and rosemary. We ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was respectful, like everyone knew words would come when they were ready. Eventually, Atticus looked up from his plate and said, "I'm your legal advocate. I've worked with your great-grandmother for a long time. She asked me to be here because, well, there are things you deserve to know." I nodded slowly. "Okay. Some of them may hurt," he added, "but all of it is truth, and you have a right to truth." He said it like a doctor warning about a surgery that might leave a scar, but would save your life. After dinner, they didn't push. Idalene just said, "If you'd like to speak, we'll be in the study," and left me to finish my tea. I found them there an hour later. I wasn't ready, but I was done pretending I could stay in the dark. The study had leather chairs, dark wooden shelves, and a fireplace with low flames crackling. Atticus sat with a folder in his lap. Idalene stood by the window. He opened the folder. "My grandfather," I started. Atticus nodded. "Your grandfather left behind a structured estate. When he passed, 5 million went directly to your mother. No conditions." I waited. I knew the twist was coming. But the rest of it, over 10 million, was placed in a trust, for you, accessible at 18 or sooner under specific circumstances, educational needs, medical situations, or proof of neglect or danger. I said nothing. "Your mother," he continued, "attempted to gain access multiple times, claimed she needed it for your care. Each request was denied." I blinked. "Then how?" Atticus turned the folder around. There, in black and white, was a signed document, a waiver of beneficiary rights. "According to this," he said, "you voluntarily gave up your claim, signed at 12. "I didn't," I said instantly. "We know," Idalene replied. Her voice was like steel wrapped in velvet. "The signature doesn't match, not even close, and the notary listed has been retired for 6 years. It's a forgery, a sloppy one." My fingers curled around the armrest. "She forged my name to steal from me." Atticus nodded. "She left me at a gas station," I added. "But first, she tried to legally erase me." The rage didn't come as a scream. It came as a quiet burn under my skin. It didn't demand fists or curses. It just settled. Heavy. Certain. "Can we prove it?" I asked. Atticus didn't hesitate. "We already have." Idalene stepped closer. "They thought you were weak because you were quiet. Let's use that." I looked down at the document one more time. "They'd tried to cut me out of the story. But now, I had the pen. That night, I barely slept. Even in the warmth of the Whitmore estate, with clean sheets and silence instead of shouting, my mind didn't quiet. I didn't toss and turn. I lay still, staring at the ceiling. The kind of stillness that isn't restful. It's watching, waiting, listening to what the dark might say next. By the time a sliver of cold sunlight crept through the window, I was already sitting on the edge of the bed. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. My socks brushed against the rug. There was a soft knock on the door, but no one came in. When I finally stood, my legs felt heavier than they should. I moved toward the nightstand, expecting to find my folded pajamas from the night before. Instead, there was a cream envelope resting there. In neat, handwritten script, it read, "When you're ready, the study is yours." No signature, but it didn't need one. Idaline's way of saying, "No pressure, but I know you're curious." After a quick shower, I changed into the jeans and sweater Margaret had left for me. Everything fit too well for coincidence. I paused at the mirror, not out of vanity, but recognition. I looked like a version of myself I'd forgotten existed. Not the quiet kid in the background of every family photo. Not the inconvenience. Just me. By mid-morning, the house was gently buzzing. I passed through the halls, sunlight streaking across hardwood floors, voices murmuring from the kitchen. I caught the scent of fresh cinnamon, Margaret's doing, no doubt, but didn't stop. The study waited. It was warmer than I expected. Tall shelves lined the walls, packed with books that had actual dust on them. A large leather chair sat near the window, where sunlight poured in like something sacred. On the far side, a built-in cabinet with brass handles. Atticus was already there, seated at the desk. His glasses rested low on his nose as he flipped through papers. When he saw me, he didn't stand or offer any ceremonial greeting. He just nodded, like this was a meeting we were both expecting. "You ready for this?" he asked. "Does it matter?" I replied. He gave a slight grin. "Fair enough." He stood and walked over to the cabinet, took a small key from his inner coat pocket, and unlocked it with care. From inside, he pulled several folders, some with my name typed across the tab. One, marked in red ink, "Private." He placed them gently on the desk and slid the top one toward me. "Start here," he said. I opened it. At first, it was just numbers, transaction logs, account activity. But then I saw the details: credit card purchases in my name, tens of thousands of dollars, jewelry stores, designer clothing, beauty clinics, a spa in Miami Beach, a salon in Los Angeles, all billed under Abigail Whitmore. But I'd never been to either place. "Why would she use my name?" I asked, my voice thinner than I intended. "Because legally," Atticus said, "you still had a clean identity and access to funds she could mask through you. It's financial fraud. But more than that, it's personal exploitation." The next folder was worse. Cosmetic procedures. Seraphine's name appeared on confirmation emails, but all charges were under me. Lip fillers, skin resurfacing, even an appointment for dental veneers. My stomach flipped. "She used me like a bank card," I muttered. "She used you like a ghost," he corrected. "Someone who couldn't talk back." I didn't answer. The final folder was thicker. Notes, reports, a preliminary psychological evaluation. No signatures, but there it was. A recommendation. Patient be considered for placement in behavioral realignment programming. Subject displays consistent signs of oppositional defiance, dissociative episodes, and deliberate refusal to engage with familial systems. I didn't even know what half of those words meant when I was the age this was dated. "They were trying to get me locked away," I said quietly. Atticus didn't answer. He didn't need to. I wasn't asking. "Where's the rest?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "That's all we have." "No," I said. "There are pages missing. There's a gap in dates. There's no signature page." He paused. "Those are likely still in Seraphine's possession. If they exist, she would have kept them in her private home files or buried them in her attorney's safe." Idaline's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't even noticed her enter. "She never planned for anyone to look, and she certainly never expected you'd have the nerve." I turned to face her. "This wasn't some impulsive thing, was it? Leaving me at the gas station. This was planned." She nodded once. It wasn't about getting rid of you in a moment of anger. It was about erasing you from the legal narrative. If she'd succeeded, you'd be in a facility right now. No access to your trust, no rights to contest anything. Just gone. I stared back down at the papers. My name was everywhere. But not me. Just the name. Just the placeholder. They wanted me out of the picture, I said, more to myself than to them. Not just physically, Idalene added. Legally, financially, emotionally, entirely. The rage didn't come all at once. It was slow, like water beginning to boil. Quiet bubbles. Pressure building. I stood. Can I keep these? Atticus looked to Idalene. She nodded. Oh, they're yours, he said. They always were. I carried the folders upstairs like they were made of glass. In my room, I spread them out on the bed, page by page, detail by detail. My eyes soaked in every timestamp, every forged signature, every lie wrapped in legal jargon. Then I opened a new notebook, the kind with a soft leather cover and thick pages that didn't bleed ink. And I started writing, not just what happened, but what I remembered. Every slight, every silence, every look of disappointment that wasn't earned. I began cataloging everything, not because I needed to hold on to it, but because I needed to own it. My story, my truth. I didn't cry, not then. Later that evening, after Margaret brought dinner to my room and left without comment, I returned to the notebook. This time, I wrote a letter. To Seraphine. I didn't write Mom. I wrote her name, and the letter wasn't an appeal. It wasn't a plea for explanation or understanding. It was a warning. I may be young, I wrote, but I'm not dumb. I know what you did, and I know what you tried to do. If you continue to smear me, to steal from me, to treat me like I'm disposable, you'll see that I'm not the girl you left at that gas station, and I will respond. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and sealed it. Then I put it in the drawer beside my bed. Not because I planned to send it, not yet, but just knowing it existed meant something had changed. I wasn't waiting for someone to rescue me anymore. I was documenting. I was preparing. If she came for me again, she would find I wasn't the same girl she left behind. The morning started like any other, except nothing was the same. Margaret had left warm biscuits and scrambled eggs outside my door, like she had a silent clock for my appetite. I ate slowly, forcing each bite down as the light outside shifted from soft gold to stark white. It was one of those winter mornings where the sun looked warm, but the air could still bite your fingers off if you weren't careful. By 8:20, I was dressed and ready for school. I hadn't been back since Seraphine left me at the gas station. No one from the school had reached out. No one had checked in. I wasn't sure what they knew, but something told me they knew exactly what they were supposed to. Atticus had offered to make a call ahead, to explain. I told him no. I wanted to see it for myself. I wanted to walk in as me, not someone pre-justified. Idalene's car pulled up, and the driver opened the back door. I didn't need it. I slid into the seat on my own. The leather was cold, the silence colder. When I arrived, kids were already crowding around the front entrance. I stepped out, felt the stares before I heard the whispers. It started with side glances, then the shoulder nudges. A girl from biology class stopped mid-sentence when she saw me. Her friend leaned in and said something that made her jaw drop. I kept walking. The principal's secretary met me before I reached my locker. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, her voice clipped but not unkind. "The principal would like a word." I followed her down the hallway, past bulletin boards with flyers for prom dresses and SAT prep courses. Everything felt too loud, too colorful, like the world hadn't gotten the memo that my life had split in half. Inside the office, Principal Keller sat behind his desk, fingers steepled together like he was bracing for turbulence. "Abigail," he said, "this is delicate." "Then say it directly," I said, lowering my backpack to the floor. He cleared his throat. "We've received an anonymous concern regarding your mental and emotional stability. The language was formal, structured. It referenced potential safety issues." My stomach flipped, but my face didn't move. "Safety issues," I repeated. He nodded once. Until we've reviewed the matter fully, we're going to ask that you take a temporary leave. It's not disciplinary, just procedural. The word landed like a slap. There was no investigation, no question about where I'd been or who I'd been with. No curiosity, just a quiet escort out of the building, as if I were a fire hazard no one wanted to mention. I walked back to the car. Margaret stood beside the open door, clearly briefed ahead of time. She didn't say a word, just waited. Once inside, I stared out the window, watching the school shrink in the rearview mirror. She's not just trying to erase me, I thought. She's trying to ruin me. Back at the estate, I found Atticus in the library, already expecting me. He didn't ask questions, just handed me his tablet. "Thought you'd want to see this before it spreads further," he said. The headline read, "Whitmore heiress missing, mental health concerns raised." Another article, shorter but nastier, suggested that I'd been in and out of care since age 10, that I had attachment issues, and that those closest to her feared a breakdown. None of them named me outright, but the descriptions were surgical, precise enough that anyone who knew me wouldn't need the name. They all quoted an unnamed family source. Only one person would feed the media like that, and she did it while sipping champagne somewhere, probably reading the same headlines she'd crafted herself. I scrolled through the comments. Some defended me, most didn't. One read, "Sounds like another spoiled rich girl acting out for attention." I closed the tablet. Atticus watched me closely. This kind of smear campaign doesn't come out of nowhere. "No," I said. "It comes from someone who thinks she's untouchable." I walked upstairs. My room, once a safe place to land, now felt too quiet. Too clean. I opened my laptop, pulled up the files we'd collected, credit card records, medical invoices, trust fund documents, each one labeled, time-stamped, categorized. I started drafting an email. No subject, just an empty body and a pile of attachments. One by one, I dragged them into the message window. The documents Seraphine had forged with my 12-year-old name. The receipts from the spa weekend she'd charged to my identity. The mock psychiatric evaluation she drafted in her own words. I typed one sentence. "If you continue, these go public." I stared at the cursor, blinking, waiting. Just like me. But I didn't hit send. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and opened the voice memo app. I took a breath, steady and sharp. "Seraphine," I said calmly, "I know what you're doing. I know how you manipulate people. I know how you dress it up in fake tears and crafted words and filtered family photos." I paused. Let silence do its job. "You left me at a gas station, but I kept the receipt. End of message." I sent the audio file to her private email, the one she used for club memberships and donor events. It was read at 9:12 a.m. She didn't reply. No shocked call, no denial, no gaslighting, just silence. That was the loudest admission of guilt she'd ever made. Later that evening, I went back to my files. This wasn't about court anymore. It was about memory, preservation, proof. She wanted me to look unstable, but truth isn't unstable. It doesn't panic. It doesn't need to shout. It just waits. So I kept gathering. Voice notes, dated journals, emails I never sent but always saved. Because if she wanted war, she should have picked someone less quiet and less observant. The next morning, I didn't bother with breakfast. I was already dressed when Margaret knocked lightly, murmuring something about eggs and fresh coffee. I told her I wasn't hungry. She didn't push. Just nodded, as if she understood this wasn't about food, not today. By 8 a.m., I was seated in the back of Idaline's car, parked quietly along the courthouse curb in downtown Asheville. The weather matched the mood, gray skies pressed low, the kind of cold that sinks into your coat and settles on your skin like disappointment. I held the envelope on my lap, not just a manila folder, but the envelope. Inside were 3 carefully printed copies of the surveillance footage from the gas station, time-stamped, undeniable, accompanied by documentation, financial forensics, forged signature comparisons, psychiatric suggestions falsely filed under my name, and a personal affidavit I'd written myself. My handwriting, my voice. No drama, just the truth. Atticus stepped out first, carrying a second copy of the file in a locked black portfolio. I followed, steady-footed, holding my envelope with both hands as if it were sacred. Inside, the county clerk greeted us politely. No fuss, no raised eyebrows, just process. Filing number, timestamp, signature. A receipt that said this moment wasn't imaginary. It existed. It was real. As Atticus turned to speak to one of the legal aides, I stood a few feet away, staring at the courthouse walls. Marble, old, the kind of place that looked like it had absorbed secrets for decades. It's not revenge, I whispered to myself. It's documentation. By mid-morning, we were back at the estate. The silence in the car wasn't tense. It was deliberate. I needed space, and Atticus knew better than to fill it. Once inside, I went straight to the study and opened my laptop. I clicked through folders labeled with dates and keywords: April Miami charges, gas station footage, waiver forgery scan, all neatly archived, all real. I paused on one file, a still frame pulled from the security footage. The moment Seraphine turned to me and said the words, "You're grown, figure it out," her mouth frozen mid-sentence. Her hand raised, not in a wave, but in dismissal. That girl in the frame, the one holding a faded backpack and standing still on concrete as a car drove away. She still believed someone would turn around. She still hoped. I saved the image to my desktop and printed one copy. Then I opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo album Idaline had given me. It was full of pictures I hadn't seen in years, holidays, birthdays, moments I'd forgotten existed. Page 17 held a photo from my 8th birthday, a summer day. Seraphine had braided my hair that morning. She wore a yellow dress and lipstick that didn't match her skin tone, but she looked radiant in the way young mothers do when the camera catches them off guard. In the photo, she was crouched beside me, one arm tight around my shoulder, the other holding up a birthday card I'd made for her. I looked stupidly happy. I slid the photo out and placed it beside the printed screenshot from the gas station. The contrast made my chest ache. Then I wrote a note. Short, precise. I still remember her. Do you? I sealed the photo and note in an envelope, wrote Seraphine's office address on the front in block letters, and left the return line blank. I didn't include my name. I didn't need to. Margaret dropped it in the outgoing mail pile that afternoon without asking. By early evening, the ripple had already started. A vague post appeared on Seraphine's curated Instagram feed. Some people can't let go of the past. Others live in it. Let's all give space, give grace, and focus on healing. Please respect our privacy. I almost laughed. Within an hour, a small local blogger picked up a rumor. Custody battle unfolding behind closed doors between wellness mogul and estranged daughter. And then there was the call. It came just after dinner. Idaline was pouring tea in the sitting room when the landline rang. She answered calmly and said only 3 words before hanging up. She's spiraling already. I didn't ask for details. Later that night, I sat cross-legged on my bed, laptop glowing in the dark. My files were in perfect order. I clicked through them one by one, making sure the labeling was clear. One folder I renamed. Proof she left me. Proof I didn't disappear. I closed the laptop and took a deep breath. This wasn't anger anymore. This was clarity. Idaline knocked gently and entered with a fresh cup of tea. She didn't say much, just placed it on the nightstand and gave me that look, the one only women who've endured betrayal know how to give. Not pity, not concern, recognition. They can't silence a girl who knows where the bodies are buried, she said. She was half kidding. I smiled anyway. Then I reached under the bed, pulled out a fresh notebook, and started drafting talking points. Calm, cold, strategic, no pleading, just the facts. She thought the courtroom would scare me, but the only thing I feared now was forgetting. They tried to delete me quietly, but now the whole court would see the file. I didn't sleep the night before the hearing. I laid there, motionless, watching the shadow of the tree outside my window sway on the wall like it had something to say. I didn't feel fear. Not anymore. What I felt was closer to tension, like a bowstring pulled taut for too long. The car pulled up to the courthouse just before 8 a.m. Atticus was already waiting outside, straightening his tie. Idaline wore gray, not black, not blue, but the kind of gray that suggested quiet authority. Margaret had packed a thermos of hot tea for me, tucked neatly into a soft leather tote bag, along with my folder labeled Exhibits AD, video evidence, medical bills, trust documents, witness testimony. Outside the building, reporters had started to gather. Not the flashy Hollywood type, more the local beat. The ones who knew Seraphine not just as a name, but as a face they'd seen smiling on billboards, holding green juice, and selling forgiveness like it came in a bottle. She arrived minutes later, escorted. Cameras snapped. Her hair was blown out, makeup just enough to look natural. She wore cream, which is always calculated, neutral enough to appear innocent, expensive enough to whisper power. Callista was beside her. She looked older, dressed in a coat that looked eerily familiar. Too familiar. I stopped short. The buttons were loose from years of wear. The pocket stitching slightly undone. I knew that coat. It was mine. The one I used to wear on cold school mornings, the one Seraphine said made me look too moody for public photos. Now it was on Callista. They turned me into a costume, I muttered. Atticus looked at me, paused, and then placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Then let's show them the original still fits. Inside the courtroom, the energy shifted, formal, quiet, but heavy. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no tolerance for flair. As she settled into her chair, both legal teams stood. Seraphine's attorney, a man with a Harvard law degree and a face that knew how to pretend sympathy, opened with his version of our story. Your Honor, this is not a case of neglect, but of generational misunderstanding. A mother made difficult choices under pressure. This young girl has, sadly, been influenced by an aging grandparent with a known bias against her daughter's success. He gestured toward Idaline like she was a relic on display. Atticus didn't flinch. When it was our turn, he rose and spoke simply. This isn't about misunderstanding. This is about abandonment, about lies, about a child who was left at a gas station and erased from a narrative crafted for public consumption. We're not here with speculation. We have proof. The judge lifted her hand. Let's proceed with uninterrupted evidence presentation. Seraphine's team, clearly rehearsed, played a short promotional video. Soft music, shots of family vacations, candlelight dinners, health retreats, clips of smiling children. And there it was. Me. At 6 years old, sitting on a picnic blanket, laughing as Seraphine braided my hair. A clip from our one trip to Savannah. A shot of me asleep on the couch after school, back when naps were safer than conversations. No name, no context, just a face. The final screen faded in. Family has always been my everything. I didn't move. She took my face and stripped my name, I said quietly. During recess, in the hallway near the restrooms, I passed Callista. She stopped, looked around, made sure no one was near, then whispered, I'm sorry, I didn't want to wear it. I didn't say a word. I just looked her in the eyes and kept walking. Back in court, it was Atticus's turn. We'd like to submit Exhibit B, he said. He handed the judge a letter, handwritten, ink faded slightly, but legible. Dolores Madden, my old neighbor. The woman who lived 2 doors down when I was in middle school. The letter told the story of what she saw. Of the time Seraphine dragged me by the arm across the driveway, screaming that I was a mistake she wished she could undo. Of the nights when I cried on the porch steps until Idaline showed up. The judge read part of it aloud. I stayed quiet because I didn't want legal trouble. But I always knew one day this child would need someone to say, I saw it too. The room was silent. Even Seraphine had stopped posturing. The judge set the letter down slowly. This letter, corroborated with the financial documents and footage already submitted, provides significant context. She turned to Seraphine. Do you wish to respond? Seraphine's lawyer leaned in, whispered something. Seraphine nodded, but didn't speak. Her jaw was tight. Her hands curled around the arms of her chair like she might fall out if she let go. For the first time, she looked human and afraid. The reporters scribbled faster. One leaned over to another, whispering behind his hand. The tide had shifted. For months, I was the troubled teen. The girl who ran away. The unstable daughter. But now I was the one with records, footage, witnesses. And her curated image, her brand of motherly perfection, had begun to crack. The judge cleared her throat. "We'll break for lunch. Both parties will return for custody review this afternoon." I stood, collected my folder. My fingers were steady. They dressed her in my coat. Now I was dressing the truth in facts. The lunch break passed slowly. I didn't eat. Neither did Atticus. Idaline nibbled a cracker in silence while flipping through her notes like she was reviewing an old grocery list, not preparing to defend me against a woman who used to call herself my mother. By 1:15, we were back in courtroom 3. The reporters had multiplied. Some looked familiar, local. Others carried larger cameras, sharper suits, and fake neutral expressions like they were ready for a national scoop. Seraphine entered 5 minutes later. Alone. No husband, no PR rep. Her lawyer stayed close behind, whispering into her ear while she nodded like a senator at a press conference. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. When the judge re-entered, we all stood. The room held its breath. Court is now in session for the matter of Abigail Whitmore versus Seraphine Cade. Atticus stood. Calm, confident. He carried a single folder, nothing more, not dramatic, just prepared. Your Honor, he began, today we submit the full file for evidentiary review, compiled under penalty of perjury, sourced from original documents and direct witness testimony. The clerk walked forward, took the folder, and passed it up to the bench. The judge opened it with the same care one might give to a letter from an estranged friend, both curious and cautious. Inside were surveillance footage from the gas station, time-stamped, unedited, credit card statements showing charges under my name, luxury resorts, surgical procedures, even airline miles she redeemed. A voice recording where Seraphine said, "She'll be better off locked away for a while. I just need to get her out of the way." Medical records with photos of bruises. Ones I never knew Idaline had quietly documented during my visits. Letters from Dolores and a middle school guidance counselor who had once expressed concern about unusual parental coldness. No one said a word for several minutes as the judge skimmed through the pages, flipping with deliberate calm. Then came the part I never expected. "Miss Whitmore," the judge said, turning toward me, "would you like to speak?" I stood, slowly, no paper in my hands, no rehearsed speech. "I didn't run away," I said. "I didn't break down. I didn't disappear." I let the silence breathe before I continued. "I was left." A rustle moved through the audience seats. "You tried to write me out of the story," I said, now turning my eyes, finally, to Seraphine. "But truth doesn't need your permission. It exists whether or not you acknowledge it." My voice didn't shake. "You called me difficult, dangerous, unstable. All because I wouldn't smile when you said 'say cheese' for photos you knew were lies." I paused. "I was the background noise in every picture you took with Callista. You dressed her in my clothes. You used my face in your videos. But you never once said my name." The judge raised a hand gently. "That will be enough, Ms. Whitmore. Thank you." I sat back down, breathing slow. Atticus gave a barely visible nod. Idaline reached over and squeezed my hand once. Then came the verdict. The judge closed the folder and folded her hands. "The evidence presented is damning. It confirms, beyond reasonable doubt, that the respondent, Seraphine Cade, engaged in calculated acts of abandonment, legal manipulation, and public deception." Seraphine's attorney shifted uncomfortably. Seraphine stared straight ahead. "Full legal guardianship of Abigail Whitmore is hereby awarded to Mrs. Idaline Whitmore." A breath I didn't know I'd been holding escaped me. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "all funds previously restricted from the trust are to be immediately restored under sole access by Abigail Whitmore. The matter is also referred to the district attorney for formal criminal investigation." It was over. Just like that. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy exploded. I didn't stop to answer questions. Neither did Atticus. But the cameras caught everything they needed. By nightfall, her face was on every blog, every social headline. Wellness queen accused of child abandonment. Hatch Justice for Abigail trends nationwide. Her Instagram went dark by morning. The companies that had lined up to promote her detox programs and intentional parenting workshops. Gone. Sponsorships vanished. Her website redirected to a 404 page. I wish I could say I felt triumphant, that I laughed or danced or popped a bottle of sparkling water with Idoline in celebration. But what I felt was stillness, because some wounds don't make noise when they close. Later that weekend, Seraphine called from a blocked number. I watched the phone ring, each vibration sharp and hollow. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. I deleted it without pressing play. She had used her voice to sell lies for so long, she didn't get to use it with me anymore. She lost her voice the day she tried to silence mine. The courthouse door clicked shut behind me for the last time, and something inside me did the same. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel victorious either. I felt done, and that was enough. 3 months later, on a breezy Tuesday morning, I stood in front of the clerk's window at the county office, holding a manila folder with the kind of grip people reserve for old letters or folded flags. The clerk, a woman with tired eyes and a kind voice, glanced up. "Name change petition?" I nodded. "Yes, to my legal name, Abigail Whitmore." She looked through the folder. Birth certificate, court documents, guardianship transfer, trust recovery, everything in order. "No middle name?" "Just Abigail. That's all I want." She smiled slightly, then stamped the form. "There you go. It's official." No celebration, no balloons. No one else in line to applaud, just the click of a rubber stamp and the weight of silence I had grown used to. Still, when I stepped outside into the cool spring air, I closed my eyes for a moment and let the sun hit my face. I wasn't reinventing myself. I was reclaiming her, the one they called unstable, ungrateful, baggage, the girl who was only mentioned in whispers. The child cropped out of holiday photos and erased from every version of the story they told. I never needed a new name, I whispered to no one. I just needed my true one. That afternoon, I packed what little I owned, half of which had been quietly replaced by Idoline over the months. A few pieces of clothing, some books, a laptop, and the box of documents I refused to leave behind. Margaret helped fold the blankets. Atticus carried the final load to the car. Idoline met me at the door. No dramatic hug, no inspirational quotes, just one line. "You don't need to come back," she said, looking me in the eye. "Just don't forget where you started." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I took her hand, squeezed it once, and then climbed into the car. The drive to the new town took a few hours. I watched the scenery change from familiar trees to unfamiliar storefronts, from winding roads to straight, flat streets lined with modest homes. The apartment was small, but it had a balcony with just enough sun in the mornings and a spot for a plant I hadn't bought yet. The bedroom window faced east. The floors creaked a little when you walked too fast. It was perfect. I hung only one photo on the wall. Not of me, not of the trial. Just one of Idoline and me on the back porch last fall. We weren't smiling, but we were solid. And that felt more real than any smile ever did. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. My books found shelves. My laptop found its place on the desk. A new notebook sat beside it. The first line already written. Sometimes silence is survival, but speaking is how we take it back. The weeks that followed were quiet. I enrolled in community college online, started courses in legal ethics and child advocacy. I didn't talk about the trial. I didn't correct the neighbors who assumed I was just another transfer student starting over. Let them assume. Let them guess. I wasn't hiding anymore, but I didn't owe anyone my story either. Then, one afternoon in late April, a package arrived. No return address, no postmark, just a plain envelope, handwritten. Inside was a photograph. Seraphine, hair pinned up, no makeup, being escorted down the courthouse steps by 2 plainclothes officers. Her head turned away from the camera, her hands not in cuffs, but almost. Clipped to the photo was a yellow sticky note. The handwriting was unfamiliar. She finally figured it out. I didn't react, not out loud. I didn't call anyone or post about it. I didn't cry. I just slipped the photo into a drawer I rarely opened. Some wounds leave scars, but they don't leave maps. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of tea and let the city sounds replace the silence I'd known for so long. And then I spoke, not to anyone in particular, but maybe to the version of myself that still needed to hear it. If someone tells you that you're hard to love, I said, maybe it's because they only know how to love conditionally. This was never about revenge. This was about truth. And truth doesn't need forgiveness to move forward. I picked up my pen, opened the notebook again, and began outlining a project I'd been sketching in my head for weeks. A nonprofit for youth who'd been abandoned, erased, rewritten. I didn't have the money yet, but I had the will. And sometimes that's more powerful than a trust fund. The past no longer dictated my name, my worth, or my path. She left me at a gas station. I left her at the courthouse. We both found what we were looking for, but only one of us was free. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who leave the deepest scars. But healing doesn't always come from their apology. It comes from choosing yourself over and over, even when they won't. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who was supposed to protect you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you found something real in this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more powerful true stories.